We did, on one of your vacations, Kellen Olson was in here. That sounded like a backhanded comment, and it was. He brought up this question of, what player, if you could have any player, if you could up their season, this upcoming season, you could just up their ratings on Madden, who would you choose? And him and I did independently. He picked B.J. Ojolari. I picked Paris Johnson Jr. And then when you came back, I asked you kind of a similar question, and you also said Paris Johnson Jr. So you and I are on the same page on this one. I don't think anything goes until, it's like a car, and you've built up this car that could maybe win a race, but he's the ignition. If you can't start the car, nothing else really matters.
That's exactly right. When you talk about your concerns going into training camp, based on earnings, I think you have to talk about left tackle. You have to talk about that. Why?
Concern or question mark?
It's a question mark,
okay.
And therefore it's a concern because you don't have the answer on it now, okay? And not because I think Paris Johnson Jr. can't handle that position, but because that position is integral to having a good offensive line. Would you say left tackle is important in terms of having a good offensive line based on audience? Yes, of course. And the only thing I see derailing the Arizona Cardinals' surprise season is not having a good offensive line. Why do you think that is? Stop and think about it. Why would that? Well, first of all, it's because the Arizona Cardinals' offense is going to be the strength of this team. It is. There's no way to parse it. That's going to be the strength of this team. I'm saying, listen, the defense is going to be better. There's no doubt about it. The defense will be better. My question is, how much better can the defense actually be? If they could just move up to being average, that would be a huge slam dunk for this team, if you ask me, because their offense is the key. And the reason being is because look at the guys they have offensively. Kyler Murray, James Conner, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey Benson, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch. Look, all these guys have potential. All these guys, I think, are going to be good in terms of skill players. But none of that matters if you don't have an offensive line that is good enough to let your skill players do what they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a lot to it, even on top of what you just said. I mean, look, certainly if your offensive line isn't good, you're not winning. You're not winning. I mean, I know that we're not all looking at the Cardinals and expecting a Super Bowl this season, but I guess you can make the playoffs with a shaky offensive line, but then you better have Patrick Mahomes and an amazing defense. And I'm quite certain if you go back over the last however many years, you're not going to find a lot of Super Bowl champs that had offensive line issues. But on top of that, this is Monty Austinfort's first ever pick. This is a top 10 pick in the draft. You traded back up to draft Paris Johnson Jr. People just think, well, yeah, they traded down. They did trade down. They also traded back up to get him.
Yeah.
So they already have a lot invested in him anyway. But yes, I'm in lockstep with you on this one for this season. All of the excitement dissipates if he can't be Paris Johnson Jr.
Yes. You listen, you don't need the best offensive line in the league. You don't need that based on audience. What you need is an offensive line good enough to allow your skill to do what they do, period.
How much do you put into the fact that he played every snap last season? How much credit do you give him for that, or how much of that do you think is luck?
There's no doubt about it. There's a little bit of good fortune that is definitely there.
Yeah.
For any player that takes every snap, plays every snap, you got to be kidding me.
Especially at that position. If somebody can just fall into you.
Just
it has nothing
ridiculous.
To do with. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he did, that bodes well. But also, he was nicked up. Paris Johnson Jr. was nicked up. Every player is nicked up. When you get to anywhere close of the halfway point of the season, you're nicked up as a player for the most part. Having said that, he went out and he played. There was a little toughness that was displayed by Paris Johnson Jr. The question is, are you going to be able to make the adjustment to playing left tackle? I know you have Jonah Williams. I know you could always flop him over there, but that's not ideal. That's not what they want to do. They want Paris Johnson Jr. to be the left tackle. And you need a good left tackle if you want to have a solid offensive line.
Doesn't that just show that that's why they drafted him? was to ultimately be the left tackle. What you just said, they could play Jonah Williams on the left side.
Yeah.
They could do that.
Yeah.
But that's not what they want to do because they just drafted this guy with the top 10 pick, and he was a left tackle in college, and he went to Ohio State. It's not like he was playing at some small school. You drafted him with the intention of him being your franchise left tackle.
Yes, left tackle is integral to the offensive line, and Paris Johnson Jr. hasn't played there. And that's why, Basinonians, it's a question mark and why I need to see it. You have to. I think he's going to be fine. He's got everything you need to be a great left tackle, but until you do it, bruh, in this league, you're a question mark until you do it.
Here he is on NFL Network earlier this month talking about the move.
I think just personally, just year two, just being able to fulfill all the expectations that I have for myself, the expectations that the team has for me being here. My goal ultimately to go is to be the best tackle in the game. And then obviously playing with the guys we have on this team, being able to have Marv as a weapon, I think is just explosive. I just love the guys we have on our offense, and I expect this offense to be one of the top in the country.
So how about
I love this kid, man.
I'll set aside he expects the offense to be one of the top in the country because that's a little bit bigger than where I was going to go with this. But how about just the simple idea? What if he's right? What if he is one of the best tackles in the NFL in a year or two? I mean, they did draft him. That's where you draft a guy that you expect to be one of the best offensive tackles. It's not crazy that he could have that in him.
Yeah, it's not crazy at all. But he is making the switch from right tackle to left tackle right now. And we all understand that is a big deal, Basinonians. It is. It's hard unless he is ambidextrous. And I don't believe that he is ambidextrous. It's a big deal. And you still get right defensive ends that line up, and the vast majority of the time, they're still the best pass rusher on the team. Why? Because there's so many right-handed quarterbacks in the league, and you want that blindside attack. That's why you still get your best pass rusher a vast majority of the times lining up as the right defensive end over the left tackle. There's still a premium on that position, even though in today's NFL, you need two really good tackles, or you're just not going to have an offensive line that is going to be able to protect a quarterback very well if you don't have two solid tackles. And that's why, once again, the question mark is there for this offensive line. But, man, there's a lot of skill. There's a lot of skill that is there. Now, it's skill that has to prove it. Hey, Trey McBride, and even Trey will say this to you. Trey McBride has to prove it all over again. He had a breakout season last year. There's no doubt about that. But, Trey, you know it as well as anybody. Do not ever, ever assume that things are going to go the way that they did for you last year. And the best part is Trey knows that. This is what I love about this kid. His sensitivities are there, and he wants to prove all over again that he's great and that he's good and that he can do it.
What do you make of maybe this was unavoidable, but like Paris Johnson Jr. has been asked about this move to left tackle a lot this offseason, and that was the national cut right there. We were playing from NFL Network. What do you make of the fact that Jonathan Gannon didn't hide it? Because originally he said, I'm not going to say. And then remember at the start of OTAs, he just flat out said, you know what? Yeah, Paris is going to be on the left side. And he was even asked by a couple of the reporters, like, hey, I thought you said you weren't going to tell us. He's like, well, now I'm telling you. So that Jonathan Gannon got way out in front of this. There was no like, oh, we're going to hide this. It's not going to be a story until camp.
It's a great question. Why? Right?
There's got to be a reason why. And maybe it's because he wanted to get all this stuff out of the way and all the questions Paris is going to have to answer about it in May and June and July as opposed to September and October.
I think it was always something that was going to happen, to me, at least in the Wolfley compound. We looked at it and said, take a guy number 6 overall, and suddenly you have an opening at left tackle.
Yeah, that wouldn't look great.
And you don't move that guy to left tackle. Now, again, that's where he's going to start, and they do have a fallback in Jonah Williams because he has played left tackle.
But that's kind of where I was going with that. I wonder if another reason Gannon did that was like, we're going to make him the left tackle. We're doing this. Like, we're going to be decisive, definitive. We're not hiding this. Like, everybody's going to know we're doing it.
If I were Monty Ossenfort, where I drafted this guy, number 6 overall, you better believe I want him out there, and he's going to be giving every opportunity to prove that he's not our left tackle.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.